Well, hey, everybody. My name's Tom Jochim. I run the Modern Workplace domain for Microsoft Services. And I've got one of our techies here, Nik Charlebois. And we're going to talk a bit today about GitHub. And I have to admit, this is a subject that I don't know a whole lot about, but I've got the guru here with me, and you can see from his background, he obviously knows his stuff. So, Nik, the thing on my mind, I understand the premise of GitHub and open source and the community. But when it comes to Microsoft services and what we do for our customers, how are you and the team utilizing GitHub to make that better?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? So it's all about transparency, I think, first off, right? It's about being able to engage with the customers. So GitHub is, when you think of GitHub, really, if it depends on your background, but if you're a developer, you think about source control, right? How to put your work in there and be able to do version history, be able to make sure that you have all the versions, all the files that you're working on, you actually have the all the locks of the files and everything. But GitHub is much more than this. When we're dealing with customers, we're actually leveraging GitHub to track issues, to track feedback, ask people. Actually, so what we're doing is we have our entire roadmap for the project exposed on GitHub, right, through GitHub planning. So people can really be able to do project management and not just developing the code on there. GitHub is much more than just traditional source control. You also have what we call GitHub Actions that allow you to go and test your code in there, right? So it's, again, being transparent, being able to show the users how we're doing development internally, being able to showcase the best practices that we're applying internally as Microsoft in projects that we are delivering to our customers.
That sounds really cool, and that different than how we've done things traditionally, for sure. Give me a sense of the community that's involved in this. Like, are we, when we're doing this for a customer, I assume obviously, other Microsoft services people and perhaps partners are, involved in this. Is the customer interacting with it too? Are there people outside of that kind of domain working on it? How does that work?
I'd say it depends on what type of project we're working on, right? So I do a lot of open source projects that are being used at customers. So right now, as far as the community goes, it's really about crowdsourcing, right? So we have folks from the community that, we've actually had one of the projects I'm leading, we had somebody that is in charge of a nonprofit organization that wanted to leverage some pieces of the tool we had on GitHub, and they already built something on their own, and they wanted to contribute back to the project. So they came in, they actually started contributing to the project. They gave us pieces of the code, they submitted feedback, they tested the project, and it started from there. We also have MVPs that are involved from the community. We have some people in the IT teams from the clients that are submitting feedback, that are contributing to fixes and improvements as well, along with some of the MCS folks and the premier field engineers that we have across the world. So it is really a community effort, both inside and outside of Microsoft.
I think that's the neat thing. What I'm taking away from this discussion is that connection, not just with the global community that we have within the company, but also with our customers, others outside of that, being able to bring all that thought diversity and that experience into, making whatever we're doing for our customers better. Sounds like a really cool approach. So how about a demo? Can you show the folks here, kind of just give them a sense for what it looks like and how it works? I think that'd be a really neat thing, maybe just for a couple of minutes to give people a taste of what can actually be done.
Absolutely.
What we are looking at right now is one of the main projects that my team is responsible for, which is an open source project hosted on GitHub. This project is called Microsoft 365 DSC, and it's effectively the configuration as code framework for all of Microsoft 365, right? It allows you to automate the deployment and monitoring of your entire Microsoft 365 ecosystem. What we can see from the repo is that we currently have, the project has 147 followers, which means that every time we do have a new bug, a new feature request, or a new question asked in the GitHub repo, the community gets notified. So folks that are following the projects will actually get informed of the new changes that are being made to the project, right? So it's a great way for them to be engaged with the development team. On top of that, what we can see is we have right now 41 issues. Now, the word issue doesn't quite represent what the items listed in there are. We are doing some triage of all items that are coming in. Some of them are actively issues that have been reported by the community. So we have some MVPs working on the project as well that reported issues. Some of them are really just enhancement requests, right? So new features that the community wants to see. You can track, again, being very transparent, you can track who's assigned to the items, either people from the community that are willing or that are helping out the team, or folks inside of Microsoft. You can see some questions that we have, right? So people asking questions. So this builds our knowledge base as well. We have items that are marked as help wanted. So those are items up for grabs. So that's really our backlog, if you want. So if people are interested in contributing, they can just look at the issue list and take on any items that are listed as help wanted. And again, right, our roadmap, our backlog, everything is listed there. So this is our project management. Again, we're being extremely transparent with what we're working on. The other thing we have is what we call pull requests. So those are the contribution from the community. So we do have contribution right now. So those are fixes, some items, new features. We have some from the community. We also have some from people inside of Microsoft as well. And what happens is that whenever they want to contribute, those changes have to go through a pretty strict cycle of testing, automated tests, and then we're doing what we call peer reviews. So if we take a look at one pull request that has been integrated as part of the project right now, we can take a look at this one here, and basically what we see is the entire peer code review that's been done. Right, so somebody has to go in the project every time there's a contribution. Somebody from the team inside of Microsoft will go in and we'll do a review, right? And basically, if there are any questions about the code that's being submitted, if there are any issues, we are doing the code review. We're sending that back to whoever submitted the change so that they can go and fix it. So it's really interactive as well. Other than that, you can see all the tests that have been ran, right? So make sure that every test is successful. We're testing against all workloads in Microsoft 365, making sure that our code is as clean as possible and that all the possible scenarios have been tested. And the other thing we do as well for this project here is we ensure that whatever test you write, we need to have at least 90% code coverage. That means that out of all of our code base, 90% of that code base needs to be tested using automated tests to validate its functionality. Another great use of GitHub inside the enterprise is with everything that has to do with documentation as code. Recently, Microsoft migrated all their documentation on a new platform called docs.microsoft.com. And all the documentation is using a format we call Markdown, and this is all hosted on GitHub. So if you go in and you're looking for some documentation, and while you're reading the documentation, I mean, it's the reality. Some of it might be a bit outdated. Some of them, for example, some of the examples might not be quite accurate, right? The description might not be there, or we're missing some items sometimes, right? So the description and some parameters. And you feel like this should be updated and you want to contribute to the actual document. What you can do is at the top of every page, you can simply go and click edit. That will automatically bring you into the GitHub repository for this document. You can go in, make your changes. You make your changes to the documentation, you save it and you submit it. The documentation team at Microsoft will review your changes, and if they make sense, they're going to be automatically included as part of the official documentation. That normally takes a couple of hours. It could take a day or two as well, but it's normally fairly fast, and it's a great way as well to get engaged, right? To make sure that we have the best up-to-date documentation out there using crowdsourcing.
So Nik, I hear a lot about DevOps from our product teams, and I know that our engineering groups in Microsoft, obviously that is almost a religion now these days with the way that we develop software for the cloud. How are we taking those learnings and instantiating them in the work that we do for customers in the field?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? Again, we're customer facing. So customers have heard of the success story that the engineering team had. If we take, for example, the Visual Studio engineering team, they used to do, like if you look 7 years ago, they used to do releases every 3 years. They would have updates every 6 months. And they completely transformed themselves. They broke down all the silos within the engineering team. And now they're running this cloud hosted business that has 99.99% uptime, right? So real success stories. So customers are turning to us now to basically ask, how can you help me out in my DevOps transformational journey? And what we realized is that services were kind of falling behind the engineering team, right? The engineering team was using all the DevOps practices, and since we're customer facing, customers were interacting with us to ask us questions about this. So it's really important to understand that we are doing a transformational exercise inside of services to be able to use our own best practices, eat our own dog food again, right? And so that when we go and deliver on projects, we are leveraging all the best practices that we've learned from the engineering team.
Cool, that's great, and I think I think it's got ramifications kind of across our business model, because when you deliver something like that, I mean, traditional consulting, right? You scope a project, you cost it out, you give it to the customer. There's an outcome at the end, and it's much more of kind of a waterfall approach. And I think what you're saying here is we're getting much more innovative on how we're doing these agile sprints and implementations in the context of a project, very similar to the way our engineering teams do and build products.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks, Nik. It's great to have you here with us, and I hope this was useful to the community that's out there watching. If you like this, definitely do subscribe, and also please give us some feedback on other topics, things you liked or you didn't like, and we'll course correct as we go forward. Thanks again, Nik. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one.